life, into her life, into my life, our lives, so that we can continue, can continue to be strong for our loved ones. And so I am going to go ahead and bring into the room Miss Taylor Elyse Morrison. She is a speaker, a podcaster, a yogi, but why we have her here today is because she is the founder of Inner Workout. And I will not do it justice, the work that you're doing. So I am going to pass it over to you to share about the work that you do through Inner Workout, your journey, your experience. But first, I want to ask you, this is a silly question, and I encourage those who are on YouTube to write into the chat as well. It's not silly, but it'll, just something to get us started. What is like one book you're reading or one podcast that you listen to every morning to get you up and ready to really set the day and be intentional about setting a positive and productive and peaceful day?
That's a really good question. So I guess the first thing that I do in the morning is not listen to a podcast. So I take my dog for a walk, and on that walk, I don't bring my phone, and I just am with my thoughts. And then when I work out, which oftentimes will be a walk or riding my bike, then I have 2 podcasts that I listen to that help me stay informed, but that way I'm not like watching the news throughout the day. So I listen to New York Times, The Daily Podcast, and then I listen to Up First, which is by NPR. And those 2 podcasts are like short, sweet, tell you what's going on in the news, not super sensationalized. And so then I know, okay, this is what's happening in the world. I don't need to now like turn on the news, or, I mean, sometimes I still get lost in Twitter rabbit holes, but it gives me a little bit more focus.
I love that. So really managing exposure to like everything that is going on, all of the noise, and some of it not noise, but a lot, it's still a lot. And it can take an emotional toll. So really managing that at the beginning of the day. I love that. I love that you answered. I actually don't listen to a podcast first thing in the morning. And so I know I've had this conversation a lot with friends about just overload, just media overload, whether it's on social media, whether it's a news channel. And so I'm so glad. Thank you so much for that gem already. The New York Times, the Daily, and the NPR podcast, where it's short, sweet. You can get an understanding about what's going on in the day, but still be able to manage what you're being exposed to. So that is lovely. I'm going to turn it over to you, y'all. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much, Taylor, for joining us and being with us for this first part of our Refresh and Reset series. I'm turning it over to you. And you can go ahead and share your screen and get us started.
Awesome. I'm so excited for this. This is going to be a good conversation. And I'll try and leave room for questions at the end as well. So we're here for a self-care 101 conversation. And as Angelica mentioned, my name is Taylor Elyse Morrison. I'm the founder of a company called Inner Workout, and we really exist to help people build the skill of self-care. And we'll talk more about what self-care actually means, because think that in a self-care 101 class, we'd only be talking about like, here's how you practice it, and this is what it looks like. But we actually have to start by answering the question, what is self-care? So this I took a couple weeks ago, just scrolling through hashtag self-care, and you see emojis, you see some beauty products, you see some inspirational quotes. I see some leggings, some makeup, a yoga flow, all kinds of things, different meals that people are doing, like showing their nails, some cool options. I see gua sha for your face. It looks like some ginger. That's a part of a product. Someone got sunburned. There's a lot that happens. And if you were just scrolling through hashtag self-care, you'd probably leave it being more confused than when you start. And so when we often have the conversation around self-care, it can be very activity-based. You are practicing self-care if you are doing these specific things. So it might be your skincare routine. Maybe you've got something you do in the morning, something you do at night, going to therapy or teletherapy for most of us now, practicing yoga, doing a more intense workout, meditating, getting a mani-pedi, cooking, especially now since a lot of us are at home way more than we're used to being, decorating your place, making it feel cozy, going outside when you can do that safe, journaling, reading a book, listening to things, music, podcast. There is a lot, and all of these things can totally be self-care. What I find that can happen is that we can make this self-care to-do list, and we can have all of these things that we have and that we say are going on. All of these things that we say are going on, and we end up making it this stressful situation where if we don't do the skincare routine, we're wrong. Or if we don't get outside for a hike this week, we're wrong. And self-care ends up being this thing where we are really beating ourselves up. And that's not what it's supposed to be. So before we dive into talking about what self-care is supposed to look like and how it can be really supportive for us, I want to tell you a little bit more about my story. So I graduated from Vanderbilt. I loved my college experience, but I also knew that it didn't feel, the type of learning that I was doing in the classroom didn't feel super practical all the time. It didn't feel like I was getting hands-on learning. I was doing a lot of reading and books in the classes that I couldn't get enough of were the ones where we were actually getting to then practice what we learned. So I was ready to get out of college and into the real world. And when I got to the real world, I started working at Allstate's headquarters. I lived in the city, and then I took 2 trains and a shuttle, and sometimes a bus to the train to the shuttle to get to Allstate in the northern suburbs of Chicago. And it was a great experience. Allstate is a great corporation if corporate life is what you want. I found out pretty quickly that it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to have a little bit more autonomy and to be able to feel like the work that I was doing was impactful. And there are people doing really impactful work at Allstate, but where I was sitting in the organization, I'd feel like, man, I could just not show up for a week and the Allstate world would still go round. And I wanted a job where it felt like it mattered whether or not I showed up. And so that brought me here to where I was taking this picture. I was feeling super bold. I'd quit my job to join a health and wellness startup. I was the first full-time employee. I got to be present as all of these, we were hiring new people, and it was just this really cool time. I had started a company my senior year of college, so I was still working with clients on the side. I was planning a wedding. I was volunteering for an organization. I was doing all of these things. I was feeling like I had a lot of impact. But then now I was experiencing pretty regularly this cycle of doing a lot and burning out and having to quit some things, and then doing a lot and then burning out again. And it didn't feel great. So this is me, and this is how I was really brought to the work and the conversation around self-care. And what changed everything for me was a bath. One Sunday night, I was trying to prep for the coming week. And then I also so that looked like prepping for my day job and seeing, okay, what emails, what meetings, what do I need to do? And then also for my client work on this side, did I get everything done? When am I going to work on this? Is it going to be in the morning or in the night? I'm trying to plan everything out. And what really was happening was I was just going between different tabs and kind of type something and then going to something else. And my brain was too fried to really get anything done. And so I decided to close my laptop and to take a bath. And that was really my first self-care ritual. So it felt so good to take that bath on that Sunday night and not look at my phone or my laptop until the following day. And I was like, this does feel good. How can I make this keep happening? And so I would do this on Sunday nights, and it would keep happening. And then I was like, okay, now my Sunday nights feel really good. What about the rest of my days? What about my Tuesday afternoons? What about my Saturday mornings, my Thursday? What does that look like to practice self-care? And so that's really how my journey started to continue was, okay, I've got this one ritual that feels good. How do I build a life that really integrates self-care into it? And so as I began to do that work personally, I started to have conversations with other people who were going through the same things of burnout and overwhelm and not really knowing how to practice self-care in a way that felt like it was more than skin deep. And we built this working definition of self-care, which is the definition that I use, the definition that Inner Workout uses, and the definition that you are welcome to use as your own as well. And this definition is that self-care is listening within and responding in the most loving way possible. So self-care doesn't just mean that you are doing your 10-step skincare routine. It doesn't just mean that you've walked for a few miles that day. It's this process of listening within and responding. It's this conversation that you are having with yourself. And so for the rest of our time together, I really want to dive deeper into concepts around self-care. I want to address some of the misconceptions. I want to share some of the tools that have worked really well for me. I want this to be something where you leave and you're like, I understand how I can better practice self-care in my own life. So you might be reading that definition and saying, okay, great. So self-care is listening within and responding in the most loving way possible. What does it mean? What does it look like for me to actually listen within? So listening can happen in a few different ways. One thing, like I just mentioned, when Angelica answered that question earlier, is just having space for stillness and silence. So I intentionally don't bring my phone on my walk with my dog in the morning because I want to just have time and space for my thoughts to run and to understand really how I'm feeling and not read something on the news or hear something and have that get my mind running, but to have a chance to see, okay, where am I at right now? How is my body feeling? My emotions? What's on my heart right now? And so integrating time for stillness is a really easy way to start to cultivate that ability to listen within. And it doesn't have to be hard. It can be in the midst of something that you're already doing. A lot of times it's just subtracting the music in the background, subtracting the podcast in the background, subtracting the TV in the background, and just having some time where you can be present with where you're at currently. And even just a couple of minutes of that can give you a lot of insight into where you're at. The next piece is observation. So starting to understand over time, okay, where do I notice that things are happening, emotions are popping up, physical sensations are popping up, and just starting to notice where you're at. So the example that I often give is around migraines. I started getting migraines when I was a kid, and what my mom had me do was observe and say, okay, what is happening around you getting these migraines? Let's notice what you're eating. Let's notice what the temperature is like outside. Let's notice how much you slept. And over time, I started to see that there were really three key factors. Is that I get a migraine if I didn't get enough sleep, it's really hot outside, and I haven't had enough water to drink, which reminds me, I'm going to take a sip of water right now. So that observation helped me learn more about myself and my body. And then there's reflection. So observation can just be in information gathering. You're just getting to know yourself. Allow yourself to really tap into your inner detective, your inner Nancy Drew. whatever detective show that you like watching or podcast that you like listening, allow yourself to tap into that essence, but then to apply that curiosity to yourself. I'm feeling this way. I wonder why I'm noticing that I'm more anxious or sad. When do I notice that feeling popping up? When do I notice that I'm more irritable? Allow yourself to be really curious and to get to know yourself at that deep level in a way that is often kind of reserved for the way that you know your kids or the way that you know your partner or your family or your close friends. Allow yourself to get to know yourself at the same depth that you know people that you're in close relationship with. And then finally, there's this reflection. And so I'm going to offer up this reflection practice that I think is really useful in helping you start to understand where you're at, helping you start to listen within, so then you're more equipped to respond with love. So the first thing that you do is just pick an interval of time. You could do this daily if you wanted to, weekly, monthly, quarterly. You could do it once a year, but pick that interval of time so that you know where you're focusing. And then ask yourself, okay, where did I experience tension? Where did I experience tension? And that can be across a bunch of different types of tension. It could be physically, like for me, I just started bike riding again. And so I have some muscle tension that's happening right now. But you might notice that there's tension in your relationship. You might notice that there's tension as you think about a decision that you have to make. You immediately have this emotional tension, and you might have some physical tension as well when you start to think about that certain decision that you have to make or a situation that you have to step into. So ask yourself, when did I experience tension? And then ask yourself, when did I feel most supported? Maybe you felt supported when your partner decided to step up and do a task that normally you do. Or you felt supported when one of your friends who lives across the country texted you just to check in on how you're at. Maybe you felt supported when you were working out and you decided to take a modification instead of pushing yourself to do the most extreme version of whatever it was that you're doing. There's so many ways, big and small, that you can feel supported over an interval of time. And so this reflection helps you to really understand where you're at. And these questions are super intentional because when you start to notice where you've experienced tension, then you can start to build out systems of support around it. Tension doesn't necessarily mean that you need to avoid or ignore it, but it might be, okay, I'm going to do this task in the afternoon because I notice that I tend to be more anxious in the morning. And so I want to give myself a little time to settle before I go into this. It might be, okay, there's some tension in this relationship. How can I explore that? What work do I need to do on my own? What work do I need to do with whoever is in the relationship with me? Do we need to bring someone else in to support us in that? And so really asking yourself when you experience tension helps you to understand where you can start to practice self-care to support yourself in that. And then when you see where you feel supported already, then you can see, okay, are there ways that I can integrate more of that? Just like for me, when I took that one bath, and I was like, that should be a weekly thing. And then I noticed that it wasn't just the bath that made me feel good. It was the time that I was intentionally setting aside for myself. And that didn't have to be just on a Sunday. And that didn't just have to be in the context of taking a bath. There's opportunities for it to be something more. So those questions are intentional because then you can take action as you start to find answers to those questions. So hopefully that's helpful in laying a baseline for how you can start to listen in through that observation, through stillness, and through reflection. Next thing that I want to share is that self-care doesn't have to take a long time. A lot of times we think, okay, I have to meditate for 30 minutes or an hour, or I have to move my body for this amount of time. I have to have something that is this really intricate and deep ritual, otherwise it doesn't count. Otherwise it isn't really self-care. And I want to debunk that myth because I think so many of us are missing out on opportunities to integrate care into our daily lives because we have this misconception that it has to be something that takes a lot of time in order for it to be effective. So what I'm going to do is walk through some different self-care tools that you might have in your toolkit. And I'm really going to emphasize how you can do these in like 5 minutes or less to really recenter yourself, to bring some care back into your day. So the first one that I think everyone should have in their toolkit, it's free, you have to breathe anyway, is to take some intentional breaths. And so I want to do that together now, and I want to set us up. So right now, I just realized I was sitting with one leg crossed over the other. If you are doing that too, put both of your feet flat on the floor. If you're short like me, you might have to scoot up a little bit. Bring your shoulders up towards your ears and then let them naturally fall down. And for this breath practice, I'm actually going to have you put both of your hands on your belly. And if you notice any emotions coming up as you start to touch your belly, any judgment, just start to notice it. This is a place that can feel a little weird for us, but there's so much benefit that we can get from breathing deeply into your belly, and I want you to feel that. So my hands, I like to start them kind of interlaced. And if your eyes are open, go ahead and blink them closed if that's comfortable for you. Otherwise, just kind of gaze softly past your nose. Exhale all your air out. Inhale, 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. 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 Keep with this breathing pattern at your own pace for a few rounds. Notice how your fingers float away a little bit as you breathe and send that breath into your belly. And then how they start to float back together as you exhale. This simple practice of exhaling longer than you inhale is a way to practice the opposite of hyperventilation. You're having this conversation with your body. You're saying, we're here, we're safe, it's okay to relax. If your eyes are closed, you can blink them open. So we just spent a minute or two breathing with intention. And what I love about that is that you can do that in the context of a Zoom meeting. You can do that when you're standing in line at the grocery store. You can breathe deeply when you're driving. You're not confined to a certain location. And as you're doing that, you're helping to regulate the cortisol, the stress hormone in your body. So you're physically helping to kind of flush out stress from your body. And what I find whenever I do that is I just feel a little bit more centered, a little bit more like I have the ability to be present even in the midst of a stressful situation. And again, literally doing that for a minute or two. You can do it longer, definitely, but extending your exhales longer than your inhales is something that's accessible that you can do wherever you're at. Talking to a friend really quick. I don't know about you, but I've got folks in my phone where I know I can just text them and be like, hey, can we chat really quick? And they can give me a pep talk, or listen to me vent. And it doesn't have to be super long, but it's this opportunity to have someone speak truth when maybe I'm in a place where I don't feel like I can speak truth to myself. This one is one of my favorites. So I grew up dancing, doing ballet, and then in high school I was on the dance team. And so I love when I need a mood boost, or even when I just need to process an emotion, to put a song on and just let my body move. Don't need to worry about if I look good doing it, just to have fun. And even if you're feeling like a little bit down or sad, your body can kind of intuitively move and help you process that emotion that maybe you don't even realize what name to put on it yet, just by nature of starting to move your body. Taking some time to write is also something that I like to do, especially if I'm feeling overwhelmed by a lot of thoughts. I tend to be a more anxious person. And so just taking a few minutes to write down, okay, this is how I'm feeling, this is where I'm at, this is what happened and it made me feel this way. That process of putting the pen to paper and having to actually express the emotion that's just been kind of underneath the surface is something that's helpful to me. If it's accessible to you, spend some time outside. If I can, I like to work outside because I'm currently sheltering in place at my in-laws and I can do that. But if not, sometimes just between meetings, I'll go outside and feel the sun on my face. Even standing by a window and seeing the sun on your face. There's also research that shows, so there's already research that shows the benefits of being in nature and what that can do for us. But there's even emerging research that shows that just looking at some green scenery on your phone or on your laptop can also be helpful. So like my Gmail backgrounds are of greenery because I know that that's like an easy way that I can kind of subconsciously help to mitigate stress in my life if I can't get outside, which I know all of us have varying levels of access to the outdoors right now. If you can create something, whether that's taking a few minutes to write a little poem, or maybe you have some clay and you make something or you doodle something, but allowing yourself a moment to create and to process. Gratitude. This is a big one. So no matter how you're feeling, if you just set a timer for a minute and think of as many things as you can for why you're grateful, and it could be big things like you have a place to live, and it can be small things of like, for me, I'm grateful that I did my nails and there's not any significant chips and it's been a few days, and I'm grateful for that because normally my nail polish chips like the day that I do it. So it could be as big or as small as you want it to be. And then if you have a pet, a dog, a cat, a lizard, whatever it is, spend some time with that pet, and don't multitask while doing it. So don't be scrolling or don't also be on the phone while you're doing it. And just allow yourself to have fun with them. See how weird and silly they are, and be present with this creature that like thinks you're the best thing in the world. So those are all little ways that you can practice self-care at any point in your day. They don't require you to buy anything or to get special training or equipment. It's a really beautiful ways that you can say, okay, I notice that I'm feeling this way. Maybe I'll spend a few minutes doing one of these things. The other thing that I want to be really clear about is that your self-care needs change. So you don't need to keep doing the same thing that you did before you had kids or before you entered into a partnered relationship or before you moved across the country. If you moved from California to New York, you probably are going to need different self-care practices to support you. So at Inner Workout, we talk about the 5 dimensions of well-being, and I really invite you to be aware of how these dimensions are at work in your own life. So there's the physical dimension, which we talk about a lot, but I really want to emphasize that it's not about how you look physically. It's not about your weight or your level of fitness even. It's about your ability to understand what's going on with your physical body. Just like I was talking about with migraines, or maybe you notice you're reacting to a food in a different way, or a type of movement that felt good to you doesn't feel good to you anymore. Understanding how your body works and then being able to care for it wherever it's at. Then we have the energetic dimension, which is largely related to your breath. Breath literally is what keeps us alive, but then also noticing how you relate to energy in the rest of your life. We talk about having the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce, but Beyonce also has a lot of support and a lot of help that all of us don't necessarily have. I don't know about you, but I don't have like a personal chef and a personal trainer and nannies and all of those different things that give her a little bit more energy. So we have to be honest about where we're feeling energetically as we're moving through what we have to get done in a day. And then mental and emotional dimension is about what you're feeding your brain, what you're listening to. You heard me talk about earlier. I'm really intentional about how I intake news, because otherwise you can get caught up in stuff that is sensationalized or maybe out of context. And for me personally, it can be really stressful. So I'm aware of what I'm putting into my brain in that way. And then you also have your thoughts, your emotions, your feeling. That's what's flowing out of your brain. Then the wisdom dimension is your ability to really tap into what you want and what you need, and to trust that you have that knowledge. A lot of us are still all like, okay, I think I know that I need this, but I need validation from this outside source. And when you are really tapped into your wisdom dimension, you know that you can trust yourself. You know that you're trustworthy. And then this dimension is looking at your connection, not just to you, but also to community. We're going to talk about community care in a couple of minutes. And then also to something beyond you, whatever that looks like for you. And our self-care needs also change because our environment changes. I just gave the example of if you move from California to New York, it's going to look different. Your self-care needs are going to look different. So I'm based in Chicago. The physical seasons are really defined for me. And what I'm craving for self-care in the winter is so different than what I'm craving for self-care in the summer. Right now, I'm like trying to be outside as much as possible, riding my bike, going on hikes, working outside. In the winter, when it's like 0 degrees, you could not pay me to like try and ride my bike outside. So there's that ebb and the flow of self-care. And depending on where you live, the physical seasons may or may not be something that impacts your self-care. If you live someplace where it's 70 degrees and sunny, you can maybe more or less do the same things with regards to the physical seasons. Then we have hormonal seasons. So this could be a whole other workshop, but if you're a person who has a period, then you have 4 different hormonal seasons that happen over an average of 28 days. And you have this different combination of hormones that may change the way you're feeling emotionally and physically, and what types of activities feel good and exciting to you. And so it's important that you begin to notice and honor that. And if you're not a person who has a period, then you have a hormonal cycle that is about 24 hours. And there's still changes and shifts throughout the day that you can start to notice for yourself. Then we have emotional seasons. As you begin to maybe look back and see things that happened to you in the past and start processing them, or as you're processing the current moment. Like right now is a really heavy season where a lot of us are experiencing grief. You might be experiencing sadness or anger or fear or anxiety as you're processing what's gone on in our world for the 6 months of 2020 thus far. So as you're entering different emotional seasons, you might need to support yourself in different ways. And then finally, you've got these landmark seasons. So say you get a promotion, and now you've got all of a sudden got all these different direct reports who are in different countries. The self-care needs that you have are going to look different than years ago when you were just entering into the workforce. If you move, that could be a new season. If you decide to get a degree part-time, that's a new season. And with each change, your self-care needs, at the very least, need to be reevaluated, but oftentimes they'll need to shift a little bit. And then we also need self-care and community care. Think about it as when we talk about eyebrows being sisters and not twins, self-care and community care are like that. We need both of them. They complement each other. They build on each other so that when you're practicing self-care, you've got the capacity to better pour into your community. But also on those times where you don't feel like you're equipped to care for yourself, you've got this community care that can then pour back into you. So I love this quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu that says, "My humanity is caught up. It's inextricably bound up in yours. We belong in a bundle of life," which is my favorite line of this little paragraph. We're in a bundle of life. And we say a person is a person through other persons. It's not I think, therefore I am. It says rather I'm human because I belong, I participate, and I share. So I love this idea of Ubuntu, of us not just being little islands who do our own things and aren't impacted by everyone else, but we're in this bundle of life, and we pour into each other. We give and we receive. It's this ebb and this flow, and it's part of what makes the human experience so beautiful and so difficult. So I want to talk about community care by just inviting you to explore the communities that you're in. You might have a community that's built around your family, your friend groups, your peers or your colleagues at work. You might have, if you are currently in school and higher education or your kids' school, your own extracurriculars, your kids' extracurriculars, maybe your neighborhood, maybe there's a spiritual group that you're a part of, but start to understand what communities you're in. And then I invite you to ask these questions. First, list your communities. So start to look at the communities in your life. I'll go back to this slide. This is just a starting point. You might have more communities that you're part of. Maybe you were in a sorority and that gives you a community. There are all of these different ways that we can be in part of community. So list the communities that you are a part of. And then ask yourself, where are you giving support? So where are you personally pouring into the communities that you're a part of? Maybe it is the communities, maybe you're bringing meals to someone who just had a baby. Maybe you're volunteering at your kid's school. Maybe you are leading something for your neighborhood. So think about where you're giving support. And then notice where you're receiving support as well. And I'm not going to give you a magic formula, so I'm not going to tell you, okay, this you should have this ratio of giving support to receiving support, because again, you are dynamic, you are changing, your self-care needs are changing, and there will be seasons where you should be receiving a lot more support than you're giving, because you don't have that capacity to be giving additional support. Your energy might be really low. Your time capacity might be really small. You might be emotionally going through a lot or physically going through a lot. And it's going to be really good for you to be the person who's getting the meals and the phone calls and is having someone check on your kids. There are seasons where maybe you don't have a lot going on, and it's good that you're giving more support than you're receiving. The purpose isn't to say you need to be in this exact balance or you're doing community care wrong. It's for you to understand, okay, this is what community looks like for me in this moment where I'm at. This is where I feel like I'm giving. This is where I feel like I'm receiving. And I want you to notice how you feel about it. That's probably the most important data point. Are you feeling resentful when you look at that one community and you're like, I am volunteering 10 hours a month for them, and I'm not getting anything in return? That's a red flag. That's probably something for you to explore. Or there might be a place where you're feeling guilt, where you're like, man, there's this community and I wish I was doing so much more for them, but I'm not, and I feel really crappy about it. So spend some time thinking about your communities and how you're engaging them right now. And then you can also start to think, okay, where might I shift? Maybe there's a community where you're like, why am I giving them so much of my time or energy? I also want to say, especially for this group, you should explore, if you notice as a trend that in most of your communities, you are not receiving support, really ask yourself why that is. Do you feel like you have to be the strong one and you have to be the nurturer and the caretaker and the giver? Do you feel like maybe you're not deserving of the support? Are there offers of support that you kind of deflect and say, oh no, we're fine, we're doing great, we don't need this, or we're not struggling as much as those other people who have the newborn? A lot of us can end up blocking support, and I speak one who
Hello, everyone. So it looks like Taylor experienced some difficulties. Hi, hello, friends. Thank you for joining us. If you missed my opening remarks, I'm Angelica Jackson. I am the CEO and founder of Strata. I'm hoping that Taylor will be able to rejoin us. She has been dropping so many gems throughout this program so far, and I want to be sure that she's able to share her last few slides and points of wisdom when it comes to self-care. I mean, some of the things that we can just highlight are the 5 dimensions of self-care, which are physical, energetic, mental and emotional, wisdom, and bliss. And then there's also different seasons of self-care. So understanding what season you're in, what you specifically need in that season. And then she was just speaking on the communities that you're a part of, where you either give support and you offer care to others, and the communities that you're a part of where you receive support, or that you feel that you should be receiving support and receiving care. So we are really just reflecting. I hope you have your pen and pencil out, and I hope that you are able to really reflect. Excuse me, I said pen or pencil, and then something to write on to reflect on how you are taking intentional time, intentional moments, and being intentional about the people and environment that you're around to cultivate more care and wellness every day. I hope that she will be able to join us. We have a few more moments, but if not, what we'll do is we'll bring her back and we'll continue recording this live stream. If you have to drop off at 1:30, which is the end time, the scheduled end time, if you have to drop off at 1:30, please do. We'll be sure that you receive this. So just send us an email, send us a DM on our Instagram. This is our let's see, this way. This right here is our Instagram handle. So as well as our Twitter, so you can DM us and let us know that you had to drop off, and we'll be sure that you get this full recording of this self-care 101 video. I'll take this last moment to just plug. I'm so excited that next week we are having another Wellness Wednesday refresh and reset moment. And that will be, the focus will be on nutrition, holistic nutrition. And I am so super excited for this, for that live stream. It'll be the same time, 12:30 to 1:30 with Paola Atlasan. And I'm just so excited for her to be joining us. Another woman of color who is just making waves in the health and wellness industry. So she'll be joining us on how we can actually live a more free life, a more joyful life by the things that we ingest and that we take into our bodies, that we smell, that are around us, that touch us on the inside through nutrition. So that'll be coming up again next week. You do have to RSVP for that link. So you can join us on our Eventbrite. We'll put in the chat that link, but you will need to join us. You will need to RSVP in order to attend that private session. We want to make sure that it is tailored to the folks who join us. So that is why we are creating an RSVP for that one. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out for this particular moment. Again, I'm going to try to get Taylor back on so that she can complete her program. But if you need to leave at this moment, do what is best for you. Make sure that you're caring for yourself. That's what we always advocate for. So thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to go ahead and play some music and hopefully get Taylor back in the room. Thanks so much, y'all, for joining us. Hello, everyone. So thank you for those who stayed on. We brought Taylor back, so she is here and going to bring her back into the room to close us out, to send us off in peace and in community. And again, if you need to close out of today's program because we were scheduled to end at 1:30, please go ahead. We'll make sure that you get the recording of this live stream. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Taylor.
Hi. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I was like talking passionately and apparently I was not in it anymore. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So I want you to be grounded in listening for me, it's that little bit of time with my dog. And right now, my dog is traumatized from the fireworks, so we're not walking long. It's like 5-10 minutes, but it's enough time for me to have space to listen to my thoughts and to understand what's going on. And then to respond with love. So you need to allow yourself to do what's loving in the moment and to let go of what you think you should be doing. And then to repeat, because I don't know about you, but my life and what I needed self-care wise looks way, way, way different if I look back to February and what I was doing for self-care before there was a global pandemic, before there were these uprisings, before I had moved to the suburbs to live with my in-laws and shelter in place. That looked really different than where I'm at right now. And if I kept doing those same things, it probably wouldn't necessarily feel like self-care. It'd probably feel kind of like a slog. And so I want you to listen, to respond with love, and then to repeat, because you are growing and changing, and this world is constantly changing as well. I want to leave y'all with a 10% off code for any digital offerings for Inner Workout. You can just use the code Strata, and I guess I know we're a little bit over, but I'm happy to stay around if there are any questions. And if there's questions that we don't have time to address, feel free to shoot a DM to Inner Workout on Instagram, and we'd love to support as much as we're able. Thank you so much.
Hi, Taylor. Thank you so much. I mean, I already did a recap when you were somehow just taken out of of our live today. I'm so sorry about that. Y'all, we are trying to make this work. We have to understand that there are so many people in the virtual space right now. So I think that is just messing with all of us in a way. But I'm glad that we were able to bring you back. I did a recap. I just recapped the 5 dimensions of self-care. We talked about the seasons. We talked about community and how you're receiving support and also giving support. There were just so many different gems. And I encourage y'all, if you have any gems or things that really resonated with you, please put them in the chat. Please put them on social. We want to be able to repost. We want to be able to share them with the broader Strata and Inner Workout community. And just also, I encourage y'all, if you are taking this moment to really focus on your self-care, this is an intentional part of that self-care journey. Take a picture, post it, tag us. Let us see how you're getting in your self-care today on Wellness Wednesday. Taylor, thank you so much. I adore you. I love the work that you're doing, and I am encouraged and just reaffirmed in this wellness work that we're doing for folks everywhere. Strata, particularly for millennial caregivers, for millennial parents, and those who are just constantly giving of themselves to really ensure that they take time to prioritize themselves first. Because you cannot, I always say, you cannot quench the thirst of your loved ones if you are pouring from an empty cup. So thank you. Y'all be well, take care, and enjoy the day. Have a good end to the week. Bye.